What's up, guys? Today should be a fun one. I say today. The next few, like, days or whatever, because it's going to take a while to do. But we're escaping a tank. I have a disproportionate amount of animals that I'm planning on acquiring this year, like stuff that I've already got coming, stuff that I've got, like, on hold, basically, and a few other things, and just stuff that I want, that I'm going to be on the lookout for. But I've got, like, quarantine tubs and stuff like that ready, but I need to have bioactive, nice planted vivariums for them ready as well. So I've got to make a few more. But yeah. All right, so I've messed with some of these materials a good bit. One thing I want to talk about is kind of like my process. A lot of people ask me questions about aquascaping and how it works and all that kind of stuff. Aquascaping is a lot different than setting up a vivarium. Vivariums are much more difficult because you have so many more dimensions that go into it. Aquascaping, basically you can dumb down aquascaping, for the most part at least, to a sandbox, and you have all these materials and you want to fit them together in an aesthetically pleasing way. So you're not working with the walls. You're not working with that at all. You just have an empty space, and then sometimes you have a background. Sometimes you lean things up against the walls, yes. But for the most part, aquascaping is about taking the rocks and the wood and all that, and it's a puzzle to find the best way that those fit together, and then you put it behind glass. Whereas this, you have so many more dimensions to it. You've got the walls, you've got the actual background, you've got materials that come out from the walls, and everything interacts with each other in different ways. And then on top of that, it has to be not only aesthetically pleasing, but it has to be sufficient for the needs of the animal. So it's difficult. That's a constraint that makes a lot of things difficult, because you have to make it, like I said, good for the animal, and sometimes that means making sacrifices in terms of the aesthetics of the build. But one thing I like to do to help with that problem of the difficulty of visualizing things is I find a piece that I really like and I fixate on it. So this is the piece that I've chosen to be the centerpiece. I've gone with a few different iterations. Like, it would be kind of cool like this, but the downside to that is when I jam it in there like that, it blocks off these two openings and is kind of a waste. So I decided that we're going to go somewhere along the lines of like this. So it would go in here, like right there. So really toward the front. It's very visible, and it's very useful. So this hole is very accessible. Down here is very accessible. Here is very accessible. I may block off this one just for safety reasons. I don't want anybody getting stuck in there. Not that I couldn't stick my finger in there and push them back out the other way or something like that, but I just, safety. But so I do that. But yeah, I find out where the centerpiece goes, and then I try to work around that piece. The difficulty is, so there's another difficulty with this method. I can't just put this in here and then have it there to help me visualize. I have to be constantly taking it in and out, because obviously it's in the front and it's a very large piece, so it would be very difficult to work on the details behind it with this here. I want to do a cork mosaic, and I have to do another hide in the back out of cork, and it would be such a pain just sticking my arms in here like this the whole time, trying to do that and trying to see back there with this piece. So I have to stick it in there, kind of move pieces around it, see what fits with that piece, and then take it out and do the work. So this one will be fitted at the very end, unfortunately. But I've got these two pieces of Malaysian wood that I'm actually really excited about, because the edges of these pieces that go up against the glass, there's gaps. So they've got a lot of character to them. Like, you can see all these ridges and stuff in here, different textures to the wood. It's very, very natural. This one has tons of crazy edges and a really nice, slope. But all of these little edges are places that you can jam sphagnum moss and put a plant. This one specifically has a huge plantable section. I'll probably do a rock below here and maybe some foam, and just that'll be a huge soil section. So I could plant so many plants here. Anthuriums probably. We'll see what happens, obviously, but really excited about that. And then I'll probably do just a piece of cork right here to fill in that piece of glass. But it's going to be really cool when it's done. Alright, so now that I've got these two pieces foamed in, they actually shifted a little bit, and it's kind of annoying. This one pulled out a little bit. It was supposed to be more that way. Not the end of the world, but I'm going to clean up the foam here and continue working. But just before I continue, I wanted to show you guys a kind of hide that I like to build. It's, you know, just a cork flat, basically, on the background. It's a cork 2 ripped in half, realistically. But this is going to go about here, somewhere around there. So it'll be a nice just hide against the back of the wall. Reptiles, especially geckos and stuff, really appreciate hides like that. It's kind of what they do in the wild. They go like in loose bark and gaps between the bark and the trees and stuff like that, and they'll hide under really tight surfaces. So like if you had geckos in your house or something and you started pulling paintings and stuff off the wall, mirrors off the wall, they oftentimes are behind that. This is just cork roll. This is a really, really good material. You can buy rolls of this for like $12, and it works very, very well. It's kind of thick, not really that thick, super easy to just silicone onto the background, which is what I'm going to be doing here. And let me show you kind of a few examples of this kind of hide and this kind of background. A little frog. So this is exactly why I set these things up. This is a perfect kind of naturalistic hide. This is exactly what these frogs would do in the wild. Is find a nice narrow spot like that where they can kind of just wedge themselves in, and that's perfect. That's how they want to chill. That's a perfect frog hide. Same thing with this background. You might think that the cork will look ugly on its own, but you can see how these plants have grown in like insane. That's literally just that cork roll, and it's humid enough in here to where things just love it. So there's Markgravia on here. That's Ficus quercifolia, or the oak leaf creeping fig. There's moss all over this, and just it works. It works very, 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 very well. And this is the furthest away from that atomizer as it gets. So no fog gets over here. It's just humid. So I think this material is a really good alternative to like, what's it called? I mean, everything. It's a good alternative to Hygralon. It's a really good alternative to Hygralon. It doesn't wick water the same way Hygralon does, but as long as you keep the area humid enough, the plants will root into it. And it's better than the dry lock because plants don't really root well to dry lock. Whereas if you put a piece of cork and you put a plant on the cork and then dry lock, it's not going to spread past that cork really well. But if you do cork in the background, that cork roll with a piece of cork on top, it's just going to slowly root into the background, which is kind of what you want. It's very naturalistic. It's a good alternative to the silicone and then cocoa fiber smeared on it. I really hate that. I don't know why I did that in this enclosure. I'm speaking of this one. I hadn't done it in years and I wanted to give it another shot, and it's not worth it. I don't like that backing at all. So it's better than that because, again, plants can really well root into it. The only downside it is unsightly for a while before the plant's growing. So you have to give it a chance. So back to this one, what I'm probably going to do is do this hide with the one piece behind it so that the reptile isn't just flat up against some glass and cold or something like that. And then the rest of the background will be cork mosaic, and I'll probably put this material in the gaps. I'll cut it into shape and just silicone it into place between all the cork. But yeah, I'm gonna go ahead and do that. So after all that siliconing and gluing, the glue is for, if you saw what I was doing, I'm kind of like laying, if we look at this piece, I'll lay, this isn't sanded the way I do it, but I'd lay like a bead all the way around the outside, and then in a few spots I'd leave it exposed and do little dots of hot glue, just so when you place it, it sits there firm and you don't have to sit there for, if it's a heavy piece, they tend to fall. Like this piece in the back, it's a little bit larger. That one was tending to kind of droop down a little bit. So a few dabs of hot glue and you hold it for 10 seconds and then it grabs by itself and you don't have to sit there and you can continue working. But this is all silicone into place. I I still have to do, obviously, this material in some of these gaps. I don't think I'm going to do all the gaps, but I'd like to give a little bit of the wider spaces, a little bit of that material, just so the plants have something to bite into a little bit more. I'm definitely going to do it all the way down here. Try to cover up all this junk. And this guy is still not attached. All right, so I've gone ahead and added soil. I secured this piece. Painted the background black. You can kind of see here, just black acrylic paint. And now I'm gonna go ahead and plant it. So the first plant you can barely see is down here. That's Epipremnum amplissimum. Hopefully that's gonna grow up behind this and fill in the area back here. This one's going to be a little bit controversial. This is one of the black Anthurium Adrianum hybrids, probably Black Beauty or whatever. It's one of those random overbred grocery store anthuriums, and it's South American, so not exactly fitting the biotope style Southeast Asian as the rest of the plants, but I like it. Next up is this Begonia Barsalouxiae. There's two little rhizomes or pseudo-rhizomes or whatever they are, stems in there. I'm probably going to add one on the left and then one on the right. Up next, we've got a Begonia Ningmingensis dark form. This is a beautiful, beautiful dark begonia. There's a little bit of a iridescence that you can't really see on the camera, unfortunately, but you can definitely see it in person. And this is Ludisia Discolor, just a pretty common little jewel orchid that's going to go in the foreground. Alright, so I added some more stuff. I added a bunch of Begonia Barsalouxiae, a bunch of moss and some other begonias and stuff. Gonna be adding more plants, but as you can see, I've got gloves on because I'm about to be adding the inhabitant. So,
catch him!
Got him. Jesus. So, this is who's going in there. This grumpy little guy. Oh, no, no sir. Hopefully having him out here is going to get him a little bit more socialized. But this is a het patternless little baby Tokay. The goal is obviously, I'm buying a het patternless because I want to be breeding patternless Tokays in the future. I've always wanted a powder blue Tokay Gecko. And I've always had a soft spot in my heart for these little guys because they're like pit bulls. But yeah, I'm going to go ahead and add this little guy into the enclosure. There you go. There you go, bud. But yeah, he's in here behind this log. I threw a couple of crickets in just to kind of make him feel a little bit more at home. And yeah, this enclosure is going to grow and change a lot as time goes on. So it doesn't look like much right now. Obviously you can still see all of the little pieces of like cork paneling and all that doesn't look super great. I've got a few more species of plants that are going to be more filler plants that take up a lot more space, like Ficus radicans. I'm probably going to put some of my Pothos scandens, which is actually a pretty rare plant, in here, and just let stuff fill in over time. So I'll give you guys an update eventually as he gets bigger, and he will be going into a larger enclosure eventually. This is just a grow out enclosure. He's a little guy right now, as you saw from him trying to bite me. And yeah, it's pretty exciting. But yeah, thank you guys so much for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and hopefully I'll see you guys next time.